put together just a folder of some of the photos that I've already put together with arrows and kind of little explanations. But I'm gonna scroll through them and kind of point things out. Hopefully, point some things out that everybody might have missed. Particularly these two, which are the leads. They usually come in twos when you see the main lead objects, whatever they are. There's usually a smaller one up front and a bigger, more spherical one behind it, usually coming across the horizon, but they pass all different directions. But these two, this is at sunset. You can even see there's a little kind of bulge up here, and then a perfectly big one back here. Got the pathway. There's even some coming up from the top right here. Then we got here's another one. This is the ramp that I always talk about, the magnetic field lines that kind of guide them down. This is kind of see how they spiral. It's a long spiral, but they spiral. This was one coming down this way, and you can actually see it right there at the very nose. A little damn dimple right there at the very front of this thing at the trail. And then you had another one which was over here. You can see it right here. It's dark. You can actually see its shadow. This is its ion bleed off trail. This is coming up. So there's two main ones right there, but you can see it better right here. You can actually see a little object, physical object right there inside it. Bigger shadow right here though. You see that's a blow up. Perfect little something right there. And this is the Autus OCGs. This is several different times, different years, around the same month, about almost a year to the day apart, as you can see from this right here, passing the same way, the same pathway, the same layout, stacked like this. Boom, 1, 2, 3, just like that. This one shooting across like that, and this is a different day. This was the really good one. I got the video where basically they start breaking. I mean, you can tell that there's objects. They're all on the line. They start breaking through the cloud, kind of pushing it, displacing it. It's one of the best videos that I got of these things coming in. Here it is again, a different year, same objects coming in. So that's a recorded, repeating, passing event right there. This is a typical one. You'll have some coming across the horizon like this. There's another one right here. You have to look for the bow wakes, the trails. You can see the trails coming in. There's going to be a bow wake. There'll be an illuminated sphere, like right here. See how it's displacing it right here? And then there's that dark little freaking object. That's one of the objects right there, pushing in this way. Bigger one pushing in this way. It's actually illuminated. As they pass over, for some reason, whatever happens, these clouds, these tower clouds, will just billow up, almost like they're getting pulled up to meet it. And it's pretty wild how it happens. I can't explain it, but that's what they do. Yeah, here was a big one that leads to. When you see something like this, that's its trail. They'll basically be inside that. See right there, perfect little sphere. There's one right there at the nose. There's actually a cluster group of them, but as they pass through the atmosphere, their trail's up top. This is the bleed off down below it. It's bleeding off under it, and they just work their way through the atmosphere, just pushing along, leaving this huge friggin' trail. Perfect little sphere. Look at that, perfect sphere. You can't get that in clouds. They just don't do that. There's another one, perfect little sphere, and this little cocoon envelope. Another one right here at the front of this little formation. I mean, look at that. It's a debris field that was passing over, I think, around 2019, something like that. There was actually a larger object that was above these, and these were the ripple wakes that were basically trailing behind the big one that was up higher. You couldn't see it, but you could see its wake on the lower atmosphere, and then all these little debris, dusty debris, and all these little chunks were basically being tumbled in this wake as it passed by. And I actually recorded that in video, so you can see there'll be little ones right here. They'll be all right in here. They're not giant. They're, you know, little, like dusty debris, little charged particles of whatever. Some of them can be, you know, fairly big. They'll just be like little shapes breaking the clouds. It's almost like they're riding right beyond it, and as they get close to this whatever barrier, boundary limit, basically then these kind of like ionization occurs between them, the atmosphere, and then you get this. It's almost like a steaming off of these things that are floating right above it, and they are completely invisible to us, unless of course they pass into the light and then they become illuminated. And, you know, sometimes you can see them. It's very, very tricky though. Here's the lead asteroids, the two of them that I've captured I don't even know how many times passing by my house. The same orientation, the little one up front is kind of oblong, the big spherical one behind it, leaving this little check, and here it is again, different day, again right there. See, 1, 2, up over here, you got this big fucker, it looks like it's got spikes sticking out of it, little one up front, here it is again, it's got this trail coming off of it, that's the same 2, you know, 1, 2, same orientation. See, it's kind of oblong. The bigger one's back here somewhere. This right here was a very close pass. They were big. That's actually the texture of the object. I don't know. It looks like black obsidian, freaking shards sticking out of it. It's very strange, very gnarly looking. Kind of like this one right here. See the little shards kind of sticking out of the cloud thing. Perfect little sphere. Ion bleed off coming off the top of it. The one in the front, for some reason, does like a twin tail, splits when it gets into the atmosphere. I guess it's the shape of it, but the bigger ones usually always trailing behind it, and they pass all sorts of different directions, distances. Sometimes they'll be close, sometimes they'll be, you know, far. It just depends. This is an example, I think, of those invisible Birkeland currents. See, this is clouds actually stretching out into a point as it's spiraling. See right here? It's got the little spiral thing coming out of whatever the frick that is. Whenever these Birkeland currents or whatever gets charged, all of a sudden the cloud, the atmosphere, whatever, starts forming around it. There it is, spiral, and big old line right there. Goes all the way across. There's again, just starts shooting out, just this little spiral column of cloud. There was actually a big physical one that was in here that popped out for a second. No, that's in this sequence, I think. But you can see there's something right here. It's billowing up. It's very strange how they work. This is all new science. You know, I don't think any of our scientists have seen this crap before, so they're studying it just as much as we are. So you see something like this. The top of it's breaking off to the right, and that's because that's a pathway. One of these things swooping in. It basically passes through that and drags that cloud that's pulling up to meet it across. And then you'll have another one that's shooting through the middle off this way. See, there'll be columns, 1, 2. It's basically shooting this way, and these ones are shooting that way. Here it is again. You can actually see it's right there, perfect little sphere. See it right there as it's swooping by. The other one's coming this way. So they all have independent flight paths that they're going, and they just kind of float by from our little speck here on the ground. Some pretty good captures of the big 3. For some reason at sunset they light up, they illuminate. I don't exactly think that this whole thing is the object. I think they're, you know, smaller objects that are in there, and this is kind of like its, I don't know, cloud envelope or sphere of influence, you know, kind of like this. That's not the exact object. It's, you know, a lot smaller somewhere in there, but this is it's kind of like illuminated sphere of influence. It's around it. It's the only way I can describe it. Coming in on this typical trail. Now this is these two travel close together, or they have been for a good long while. This is the lead asteroid and the green asteroid. So the lead asteroid kind of is about this color. Well, I guess you'd say it's about this color right here. It's got kind of like wrinkles and craters on it. Physical object, clearly. But it always has like 3 stripes, horizontal stripes going across it, which is how you identify its shape in the sky. Usually around the sun, pretty close to the sun. The green asteroid's usually somewhere near it. It looks a little meaner. It's basically like a big one with a bunch of little ones around it. So its trail looks a lot nastier, kind of like this. So you have, like the big one here, and then these little ones kind of have their little independent trails. And here is the lead object. It's right next to it. It's got those little wrinkle creases across it. Ion bleed off coming off. This is a refraction of it from the sun, showing the texture. Here's a close-up. See the wrinkles. Same object. Same object. Same object. Glowing orange. That's its color. The green one, you can actually see one of the little green things poking out. It's gnarly little trail, ion bleed off. This is one, I actually followed it. I was tracking it on Bloom Sky all across the world, and this was one of the captures that actually captured it. It's gnarly nastiness, and I actually got the whole sequence. I think it's in this. Here we go again. This is when it was farther away, passing by, I think around 2019, illuminated green. You don't really get green illuminations in the sky unless there's something green up there. You can see the perfect little shadow sphere next to the sun, which is typically where the lead sits. Here it is again. It's kind of silhouette. It's got the stripes, horizontal stripes going across it. That's how you pretty much identify that thing. Pretty easy to identify. We know pretty much where they are every day. If you have a clear sky, you can usually see some kind of influence in the sky from them, kind of like this, a little bulge or something. But if you look for them, you'll start seeing them. They're always up there. There's the asteroid coming in. It's pushing up its little bow wake, almost just like an ocean wave. It's pushing it forward, and this is the wake that's kind of forming in front of it. As it pushes the atmosphere, displaces it, it's probably pushing in different densities, mixing them up, causing all sorts of craziness. There's another one of those transparent ones. It's basically passing overhead, leaving its trail. You can kind of see it right there. It's kind of its texture, but of course it's not being illuminated, so you're only really seeing its silhouette and its trail. This is a really good one. Nice little, the actual objects at the front. This is kind of like it's I guess it's something like the atmosphere kind of collapses behind it and kind of expands back into kind of like a bubble, a big bubble, making it look big, but it's really, up front. This is its turbulence, its wake, kind of collapsing on itself and kind of forming a mock sphere. But you see its perfect little arc. Here it is again, different day, different year. Over here, different day. Here it is again. You can kind of see how it sits. It's got the three little lips on it. And this is an example of just a cluster group. There's a cluster of them right here, making it look like it's a bigger one. And there's those two again. So this is probably one of my luckiest catches. No, this is not the moon, because the moon does not ion bleed off, and it doesn't come into the atmosphere. This thing was literally illuminated for a second, just long enough in my sequence of snapping photos that I caught one photo of it. But I mean, perfect little crescent. So you can tell how these things are there. It's just basically invisible until a part of it becomes illuminated and it moves past you, and you can actually see that illumination. Huge trail coming off of this thing. It's just like this one that somebody else caught. You can just kind of see the silhouette of it in the clouds, which is probably why that chemtrail up there. It obfuscates everything behind it. There's another one, it's there, but all you really got is like kind of the cloud forming around it. Same thing with this. There's one there. You just can't see it because it's not illuminated. You can see the trails coming off of it and the influence. Same thing with this one. It busted through the clouds, leaving a little bow wake. You can see the perfect sphere. You can't really see a physical thing, but you can see the sphere outline of it, so something's there. You see its influence on the sky. Sometimes you just gotta use your brain and look at all the signs and put it together yourself and stop waiting for somebody on TV to tell you what's what. Because they lie. Here's another one. This is a pretty good one. A huge illuminated crescent that was well beyond the atmosphere. You can see it's kind of got that heat distortion to it. You had Otis Moon is somewhere up here, and then Atu is basically this big ass arc that cuts across. That whole thing up there is Atu, with Otis Moon kind of behind the patchy clouds. Then you got one of the asteroids that's doing a really close pass, and I was lucky enough to catch it. It's illuminated crescent. Everything else being invisible. Atu has this vivid purplish blue effect on the sky when it's up there. Nibiru is usually to the right of the sun, and it's more of a deep navy blue, like a shadow blue almost when it's prominent. Atu is usually like a nasty looking orangish reddish. Not fun when it's out. Here's another example of a big one passing up above, and its debris kind of trailing behind it, and you can literally see the dark imprints of the objects that are being tumbled around inside its wake. So you can tell there's something in there, and there's its wake from something bigger up above. It's just tumbling along all this crap, the dark little spots. They're not big, but they're there. All these little ripple wakes are caused by a debris field that's passing right above it. Another good example, and they always do this when they're next to the sun, cause that rainbow clouds that everyone says was rare. It's not so rare anymore. You can actually see a couple of the physical objects, little dots. But they're all over in there. I only point out, the obvious ones. If you really get in and look, you'll find them everywhere in your photos. This is a good example. Something passing above, and it kind of pulls the clouds up to it. It almost looks like something hopped from the clouds. See this trail? It's like it hopped up in there. It's very strange. This like energy connection, or I don't know, maybe it's connecting to the earth as it passes. I have no idea. Another good example. This was actually a year apart from each other. So this is 2020. This is 2021. Passing the same, a couple months apart. Same kind of illumination. You can see this little bow wake. It's ionized, ion bleed off trail, passing right over the house, just like it always does. And this is two separate occasions. This is one during the day, and this is one during the morning. But you can see, you can actually see the impression of the objects right there. And there's almost like this corkscrew kind of effect coming off of them as they pass over. And this one right here, same thing. See that kind of like corkscrew effect as it's passing. It's very, very strange. You can almost see the objects right there. You can see it right there pretty good. There's more of these damn rainbow refractions that are supposed to be rare. Rainbow clouds all day long. This one, there's actually one of those objects that's trailing this way. Something about the dusty debris that follows these things refracts into these weird, strange rainbows, weird parts of the sky. Look at that, just a random rainbow cloud. An example, you can see the little impression, little bow wakes right there. The object right there. There you go again, another one cutting across. It looks like a freaking missile cloud, like a big old schlong stretching out. I mean, the clouds don't do that, folks. I hate to say it. You can see it, there's a little sphere sitting on a little cloud cushion right there. See little impressions, a little bow wake, trail. I mean, I mean, even right here, you can kind of see its impression. There's one right here. They kind of displace the clouds as they push. It's another thing to look for. You can see right here, a little sphere. They're really easy to spot once you know what to look for. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. All right, this was Autism Moon one morning, where I actually caught it through the clouds. You can see it's perfect. The sun wasn't even really up yet, but the whole sky was just white. And I started taking photos. I took a panorama, and usually these things are so big. I mean, you see my house right here. They're so big that from our perspective, you don't really notice the edges. You know, you're looking for something small, like a small sphere or something like that, but when most of the time these planets and moons pass, they're taking up half of the sky, you know, or the entire sky. You know, you got like Nibiru up here. This is Otis Moon with its white illumination. I think Uri was over here that day, but Otis up there. Some refractions of the Empire orb. It's only like one time the flare on my security camera has made that particular shape, you know, with a little circle on it, was the same time that other people were catching these. It's almost like when they pass in front of the sun from the camera's perspective, their shape, influence, electromagnetic information basically gets caught up in the sun's light and bounced around in your camera, and you get an almost exact hologram of them. How it works, I have no idea. But these little hologram flares there'll be bunches of them pop up around the sun when these groups basically pass in between the sun and the camera. This was the long box cube up here, being illuminated at sunset. I was actually driving home as fast as I could because I knew none of my cameras were recording, and I just pretty much missed that day was awesome. That was Halloween, or no, it was 11/22, close to Halloween. A little asteroid cluster group right here. A little cluster at the front. It's ion bleed off trail going behind it. This is one at night. It was frigid cold, but because, you know, I do a lot of this sky watching at night from my hot tub, it doesn't matter how cold it is. But this was like somebody opened a blast freezer when these things were passing over. It was a different kind of cold. But I saw this thing with this perfect trail just cutting through the sky, and I snapped a crap load of photos of it. You see a perfect little freaking object, perfect little trail. That was a good one. Some more examples of these things doing the same kind of orbital pass. See, there'll be one up. There's one up here. This one's pretty obvious, coming in, pushing that way. Perfect little sphere shape there, pushing in that way. You can actually see one next to the sun. There's probably another one over here. See right there, perfect sphere, perfect trail cutting in like that with the illumination in front. When they come in close to the horizon like that, their little bow wake will illuminate basically. Why? I don't know. How? I don't know. But it does it. Another example, that's about the rough size of where Autism Moon is. Auti way behind it. And then basically these asteroids, objects, whatever, orbiting under them, kind of going back and forth, you know, from our perspective, from day to day. But every now and then, you know, once a year, you'll get these exact kind of passes where they come in the exact same place. You can see them right there. They were basically pushing up from beyond the atmosphere, almost kind of pushing into the atmosphere, and then these clouds just start pushing up and forming. It's pretty impressive. Here it is again, up close. This was actually a close pass. This was directly above me. Probably one of the coolest photos I got. That is the planet right there. You can see the lip right here where that rainbow is. That's Auti behind it, and that's Autism Moon with basically its ion bleed off, you know, bleeding off between the two as it passed directly overhead about sunset. Kind of like Sam Hoffman's drawing right here. With Auti right there and the ion bleed off between the two. That is exactly what you see there. And there's Otis Moon, captured on various sky cams from different times of the year, different places of the world. It's got that same kind of like rainbow cratered surface. It's a strange object, that's for sure. But it's a supermoon, and it is white. A lot of craters. There's these like Birkeland current things that I always talk about, the spiraling path with a little object following it, basically like the magnetic highway. It's pushing up. Almost got like a motorcycle airbrush flames coming off of it. See right there, you can almost see something. Almost looks like a square in this photo. That's that same one. This is a different one. You can see this trail right there, big one swooping over. You always got to look for these big, I mean, it just looks like something coming in, displacing the atmosphere around it, leaving a huge trail, busting through the clouds, perfect little object. Many people have captured this object. It's basically an object inside, kind of like a cloud envelope, that makes it look, kind of like that. This is around 2019. This was bright in the morning. I caught this thing shooting across the horizon, this red comet-like thing. You can see it illuminated right there. It has these two kind of like pillar clouds above it, which I think maybe goes to something bigger that's you can't really see in front of it. But I mean, I snapped all sorts of photos of that thing, and it just cuts right across the horizon. I don't really get it. Here's one a year later, cutting across, same freaking thing. Same thing. This is just not illuminated. I think this was at night. That's why. It's got those two little kind of stripes coming off it, and that's its cutting through the atmosphere, displacing trail. And that was another red one that basically temporarily illuminated for a brief moment at sunset. 2019. It's back when I first really started getting interested in filming everything. And after I started, it was just one crazy thing after another. Here we go again, cutting through, pushing. I mean, they'll push into the clouds, displacing the clouds. Sometimes the big one will come this way, and another one will be coming this way, and basically the big one will catch it and change its direction, and it'll start basically following the bigger one's path. But they have an order. They don't collide. It's like a magnetic organization that they follow. I guess electromagnetism, plasma is intelligent, because these things, it's almost like a food line, where they wait. They'll wait for the one to go, and then they'll follow it, but I've had clouds basically stall to wait on another cloud to come in, rotate, and then follow a pathway, and then after it moved, the other one started moving again, and it turned, and then it followed it. I can't even count how many times I've seen that from my hot tub vantage point. Here we go again, another big one. I kind of put that together to kind of show. It's pushing up the bow wake. Out here to the sides, it's kind of tumbling off, creating the twin tails. And you got the ripples. Pretty damn good one. Another example, same kind of thing. Slightly manipulated so you can see what's there, leaving this little bow wake. And that's what you see during the day. It's just bright white. You wouldn't think nothing of it. You'd be like, oh, it's a weird cloud. Move on. But when you do this, you can tell that there's really something in there. Objects all up in it. Yeah, see, that's the edge of the planet, basically, right there. That's how big and massive these things are. I mean, that is just an asteroid. And it's way bigger than the moon has ever been. But that's how close they get, and how big some of these objects are. A lot of the stuff that travels in the Birkeland currents, I think, is kind of dimensional, non-physical maybe. But a lot of this stuff is physical. It's just it's not illuminated, so it's basically invisible to us, and it makes us think that, you know, it's dimensional or holograms or, you know, something spiritual, when in reality it's just a regular object. It's just not in a position to where we can see it. There's no sunlight being reflected off of it, so thus it's invisible. We only have a few senses that we work with, and they're not very in tuned to seeing stuff like this. There you go again. Same object, different times of the year. Same flight path. I say flight path, same orbital path. Another example how these things basically push through the center of clouds. So all this cloud is billowing up, and this thing is basically pushing through. Perfectly straight path right through it. And I got a bunch of different examples of stuff like that. You see the green object, green asteroid up here, kind of behind. It's got a shadow around it. It's coming in. It actually was moving, and there's more that were coming in this way. I don't think I threw those in there. It's showing basically how one of these objects is moving right beyond the clouds, and it's creating this perfect little trail, just like a duck in water. There we go. There's another one of those things swooping by. Same kind of pathway, displacing, pushing through. You can see the object up here in the front. That's what they do. It happens at the speed of cloud. Here it is again, coming in a different direction, different group, coming in this way, pushing a little bow wake. There's that same one busting through the cloud. Transparent, yet not. Yeah, and so I put this together just to show. I was actually lucky enough to catch them without showing the refraction, and then this is basically what they looked like, you know, to your eye. You would think it's kind of like a weird cluster of clouds, but yet they kind of have these ribs, you know, going down them. And then shortly there, after this photo was taken, I took this photo, and then the light hit it, and basically they refracted into this. So when you see these things in your camera, it's not always just dirt or, you know, something like that. Sometimes there are objects behind it, and that's the effect that your camera can actually pick up as they move, you know, in front of the sun, or the sun reflects off of them, etc., etc. So don't dismiss stuff like this so easily. Perfect little trails. I mean, it just looks like a strange cloud, but there's clusters of shit right there, and it's just bleeding off. You know, you don't get crazy clouds like this, you know. Almost looks like there's a big old object right there. You always got to look for the bends and the trails. Probably an object right there. Wherever there's a big streak like that, it usually leads to one of these clusters. Another example, different times of the year, same kind of object through the atmosphere. I mean, clearly that's in the atmosphere. You see the sphere at the front, the twin kind of column trails coming behind it. You know, there wouldn't be any cloud if it wasn't in the atmosphere. It just means that the actual object's a lot smaller than we think, and this is just a big influence. You know, another sphere, it's trail pushing through. I mean, maybe it's just my location, I don't know. But I mean, you can see where the house is, where the barn is, my neighbor's barn. They're always passing at the same frickin' spots, same places, same direction, same everything, over and over and over. I mean, it's not like I can make this shit up. Passing in front of the sun, pretty self-explanatory. Big old trail. That goes all the way up to the object right here. It's got multiple little trails coming off of it. Right here up close. It's like a debris trail shooting off of it. Kind of like my little illustrations right here. They're pushing up. There's another one of those. This was another one of those year aparts. The same thing. The same kind of cloud formation. Literally almost 1 year apart. Like 20 days. This one shot through like that, and this one actually took the whole cloud with it. It's a little bit bigger formation. You can kind of see that sucker illuminated right there. So it's going this way. And then there's other ones, the wind direction is actually pulling all the ion bleed off this way. So it makes it kind of like a corkscrew as it's spiraling upwards. It's pretty wild how it does that. This is an example of Otis Moon basically coming in. So let's see. So this, when it first starts coming in and it's still pretty far away, you're going to see this. This is pretty much like its base cloud, this spotty little patchy, you know, kind of like Sam's drawing, just a little spotty bit of clouds right here. You know, there may be some ripples right there from it passing above. And then it gets closer a few days later, and then you're actually going to see more of it. The Autism Moon is basically right here. You can see its lip. You just can't quite see it. About the size of that. And it's passing over, and that's the bleed off basically coming off of it. And then when it gets even closer, and it does its close pass, it's basically going to be, you know, right above the cloud layer. And you're going to get this dark, kind of huge ion bleed off that's just going to fill the entire sky. So that's kind of how it approaches, kind of what it looks like. Another repeated passing was that 2020, 2021, so about a year apart, coming across the horizon, pushing its trail, pushing into the cloud against the wind. Same thing right here, pushing in. Everything's going this way, but it's pushing through that way. So it's basically leaving like a tunnel trail behind it where no clouds fill in. Back in 2020, so yeah, there's the little moon right there. This was in the morning. This was a huge bleed off trail of a group basically that were passing, and this is actually one of the physical objects right here that's moving along the trail. There was a bunch of them, but this was the one that popped up, and you could actually see it's kind of its surface texture moving right through that cloud. There it is again. See, it's moved on. It's not just a hole through the cloud. It's an actual object, and that's its trail. It's a bunch of objects actually. It's just one of the smaller ones. It's one of the planets up close above. Here's some nighttime shots. So this right here is one basically swooping in, doing its kind of like orbit. So it's like it's being attracted from afar magnetically, and then it gets to a point and it hits that repulsion point, and then it basically arcs and then just starts moving along. That was one perfectly coming in at night. This was going straight. See it? And then there's a bigger one when it gets really close. How it wrinkles the sky. The same kind of, the two of them. Now I actually watched these things over 2 days come from being close. You can see the object right there, and the other little one with this little bow wake, and then actually moving away a day or two later. It was a lot smaller, but the same area of the sky. You can see that little guy, that little oblong one up front, and the bigger spherical one behind it. It's the same two leads that I always show, coming in with this little spiral trail and its little bow wakes. I got good video of that. It's really weird. They look like it's almost like a creature, like it crawling, just slowly moving across. Almost looks like it's moving across the surface of something, and we're just, you know, seeing it moving across the surface of something we can't see. But it really did look like it was crawling across the surface of something very large behind it. All this crap's pretty awe-inspiring to witness, you know, live when you're following it with the camera and watching it and seeing it in real time. Here it is. Here's that one, that big old lead object with this little wrinkle face, kind of almost looks like the Kool-Aid Man. Showing an example of these dang comet trails cutting through the illuminations. Illumination at front, trail. Illumination at front, trail. Cutting through, displacing the clouds. Cutting through, illumination. You know, this is a close one. Got that fiery illumination. Just, you know, one or two times, yeah, you could explain it away, but as many times as I caught it doing the exact same thing, you can't explain shit away. Now here's that physical object that I always talk about. There's actually one right here, kind of going this way, but this guy almost looks like it has a facial expression. I mean, call it a Ninja Turtle head. Looks like melted layers of metal, but they seem like they're alive. This thing literally poked out for just a brief second and was like steaming this cloud up, and then it just kind of backed right back into it as I was snapping away. I got video of this thing popping out and going back on three different cameras that I had set up recording the sky, and a bunch of these snapshots. So you can't call that a fake, a hoax, or whatever. I got verifiable on different cameras to prove it. And I caught it on different days, different times of the day. And I think you're going to see it. Yeah. So here's one of the good snapshots. See right there? Perfect little lip. Not a cloud, not a freaking distortion, not a whatever. It just popped out and then it just went back in. And it's just basically moving along the horizon right there with this weird ass sunset. Here's again, different photo, still there. Still got his mean ass look on his face. There's one of those damn spiral cloud things that's shooting out. There's so much weird crap in the sky this day. Kind of a close up, and it's starting to back up into the cloud. I mean, it almost looks like it's, you know, some kind of melted rock electric monster, you know, that has intelligence to it. It's got a strange feeling. During a lightning strike, I actually caught that one right there on the top of this freaking cloud. It's pretty weird. Illuminated, you know, you see the bulge pushing through. Kind of got the wakes of that sunset. There's that same. This is actually in a lightning storm also. I think I got it better. There you go. Yeah, see the lightning bolt. See it up there? It's like a energy monster. Freaking hides in the storms, absorbing the energy. Got the little melted face looking thing. And there's another one. This is a different day. You can see this trail right here. Point that one out first. Coming down. But then you got this guy. And you got this weird kind of cloud stuff in front of it. But I mean, perfect little object cutting through right there. And right there. There you go, another one of those damn folded wrinkle face coming in. He's got his little bow wake. He's coming in like that. I mean, chemtrail plane pointing them out for you. I always say these planes like to draw lines right to the objects, so pay attention to those. This is that same object, different times of the year, different locations. So you can always see some kind of impression of these things. These impressions will form, and the clouds will take it over, and then they'll form again. And you know, see right there, it's still there. Here it is again. Almost looks exactly like it, but it's cloud. And then here it is, a physical image of it with the wrinkle face, just like all the other photos. That was a morning. These are the lead objects. You can actually see the big V. You got the little kind of wrinkles. That's actually those little obsidian spike things that are sticking out. This is a different day, but you can see it's got those little wrinkles right here on the sides. There's actually one of these little black dot things investigating it, like they always do. And then here it is again. This is a closer. You can see it's got those weird wrinkles or lines across its side of its body as it's passing by. I mean, same freaking object. Different examples of how these things freaking do these little arc passes. It's a nice little shooting across. This one right here, it's coming across. You can see it right there, illuminated. There's one up here. This was some examples of some wakes. I think this was actually Nepicity, the green planet that causes those microbursts and all that nasty, violent weather with the green kind of thunderstorms. This is one of the wakes when it was doing its close pass. example showing how many times I've caught these two. You know, the elongated one and the bigger one. The spherical one, the elongated one. And you got an object right there. Got poking out right there. Same thing, 1, 2. One up here, one back here. One up here, one back here. One up here, one back here. One up there. There's a nighttime shot of one, basically coming in, leaving this illuminated little bow wake as it's pushing in. That was back in 2019. Here's a little cluster group, kind of showing that you can see them just kind of obfuscated behind the clouds, little clusters of spheres, little wrinkles right there. I mean, you gotta have a pretty good eye to know what to look for, but these ones are a little more obvious. Just gotta look for those little horizontal wrinkle lines that form the trails and the bow wakes, and you'll be right on them. Another example how one is basically transparent or almost invisible in the sky, but yet there it is, perfect sphere. Same thing as that. Same freaking thing. Same thing. Same thing. And this is a repeated pass, something like a year and 3 months, something like that off. This was in the morning. This was in the sunset. But you can see it's the same kind of shape formation that, it's pushing like a rocket almost. Got these little spheres in it. Another example, see its trail, it's coming in, illumination. You can see it pretty good. It's got those little ion bleed off trails. Another example, same thing, different time. Look at that, perfect, just shooting over like that. Same thing right here. You can actually see one's coming in like this. You can see its little wake, and one's coming in like that. You can see its little impression. Same thing right here. This little bow wake starting to form as it's pushing in. The pressure instantly forms that under it. There you go, right there. It's a dark shadow of one of these things shooting over. Perfect little sphere right in there. Man, this is a long folder. Some nighttime examples of the ion bleed off trails going down to the horizon to where the illumination is. Illuminations. This is a big one doing a close pass. So this is its pass. This is actually the object right here. You can see that big old sphere right there, and this just swooped by like that. Yeah, so here's an example of these planets basically as it's passing. So this lip right here, all that up there is the passing planet basically. And it's kind of like this, so it's passing right here. You got the sun, and you have an asteroid that's kind of sitting up here, basically being illuminated right there. So it looks like another sun, but the sun's actually back here shining around and illuminating this. And then this right here is actually the edge of another planet that is behind this one. But I mean, you can even see the light along the lip. Sundogs and all that crap. They don't do that. There's not a different density above there than there is down there. Our atmosphere is this little section right here. Everything up there, one of these passing objects. Yeah, this was my close pass of this this freaking obsidian chunk, nasty rock, whatever it is. You can even see all this crap is like debris. All that is like black chunks of sharp. I mean, it looks like obsidian glass just poking out. So it's like all that white crap is basically the cloud envelope that surrounds everything, and then this is basically the cluster of debris that makes up this object. And they look like really sharp objects sticking out, but it is a lot of debris around this thing. Why it doesn't collide, I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure out, the shape of the Earth and fucking how much of what I thought I knew was a lie, and it's still a mystery to me. But I know what I capture. is that same object. This is a panorama where I actually caught, see how it's got that kind of like cloud envelope. Somebody caught this actually somewhere in Europe or something like that, but you can see it's got that weird kind of same exact object. Different. These are all different things. This one was the other side of the planet. Somebody caught with a sky cam. This is me with the panorama. The green asteroid's up in front. The lead object is in there somewhere. Way over here, this is a long box cube. It's not a very good photo, but my other photos were better than that. But the Empire Orb, long box, somewhere over there. And now this is one of those ones. I call it the Kool-Aid Monster because it really does look like the Kool-Aid Man. But it literally bounced off of this cloud wall. Bounce, and bounce, just like a freaking bouncy ball. Bounced off the atmosphere. How the hell that works, I don't know. But I got video of it, and I got these snapshots to prove it. And I was hunting for this thing because I kept seeing it in the periphery of my eye when it would basically, the shadow would bounce off the sky above, and it would catch my attention, and I would see this shadow moving above the clouds. And for weeks I set my camera up in the exact same spot where this Birkeland current is to try to catch this thing, and I finally caught it on this day, and I was so excited. See right there? See, it looks like the damn Kool-Aid Man. It's got the little eyes, you know, the little damn handles right there. Red color. It's looking like he's looking at you smiling. But they just bounce. I have no idea how it works. It's new physics, man. Everything about this is new. We're experiencing stuff, going through different parts of whatever you want to consider space. That's it's going to be all sorts of new craziness. You can see perfect little spheres behind the clouds and these little ripple wakes. Just shows how easily they hide in the cloud. But yeah, perfect little sphere impressions as it's passing. This is one of the first ones I captured. It was pretty awesome to see a perfect sphere form in the cloud, and I caught it during night and during the next day. So it's kind of like this. Comes in, little object at the front, bleed off. The second bigger one will be behind it. You can actually see it right here. So when you get these big, tall, billowing clouds, one of these big suckers is somewhere up there behind it, which is what is basically generating, pulling all this cloud up to it. And this particular one, it was kind of doing an orbit like this, and it was ion bleed off was coming back that way, but it was moving up this way, and it actually poked through for a brief second. Same object. This one actually kind of has stripes. There is pathway coming in. It's pushing in. You got the bow wake. This might actually be the object right there, that little black thing. I don't know, but you can see its little sphere of influence, bubble, whatever the hell you want to call it, pushing in, just like that. There's that night one, that same object. There's a cluster of them. God, I hope this is it. Yes, alright, that was it. So, hope you enjoyed it. Till next time.